Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you guys that are new, my name is Brad. I like to help people start or scale medical practices, and I myself own a multi-million dollar medical practice. Today, let's talk about ownership and why I am relentless about true ownership of medical practices. Most physicians that I consult with think that ownership is about having equity on paper. They think that if their name is on the door, if they keep a percentage of maybe the income that actually comes in, or if someone calls them a partner, that they still own part of that practice. But ownership isn't a title and it isn't a seat on some board table. Ownership is about control over decisions, directions, and outcome. If someone else can overrule you, decide your future, or tell you when you're allowed to cash out, then you don't own a business. You just work there with better bonuses. Now, today, I'm not going to hate on those guys and gals that have decided to join up with private equity, but I just keep seeing this more and more. Let me kind of circle back to whenever I was a hospitalist for an HCA corporation. And there was an independent group there and they offered a buy in. And this is a story for a different day, which I think I maybe touched on a little bit in the past. But basically, when I joined, the buy in was, I think, like $20,000. Well, I was a top producer. I had billed over 10,000 RVUs that year. Next thing you know, the valuation of the entire hospitalist group, because we were getting so much more busy, more efficient, was worth so much more. So now, when it came time to buy in, I was screwed. My clause at that table or on the contract said my buy in valuation will be whatever the valuation is at the time of buy in. That's not necessarily unrealistic, but at the same time, I had no protection about me adding the value to that practice. And then I'd had to buy into that higher valuation. So I screwed myself. I worked hard to value the clinic and value this hospitalist group for more money. And then when it came time to buy in, now all of a sudden they're like, nah, $75,000. That's the buy in. And here's the thing, when they offered me a seat on the board, I was like, "Oh, okay. All right. Well, let me think about it, all right?" And then I started realizing that this board was a shadow board. It was just a fake board of we would make recommendations on potentially things that we wanted to change. Okay, this is how many people we want on the admins or call schedule taking admissions. And then we would have to send that to another board, a higher up board to get approval or not. And it circles back to what I just said earlier. Ownership is about control over decisions, directions, outcomes. I didn't have control. I was making recommendations to another board, and that board had the power to say, like, sure, Brad, or not. And what they were really doing is private equity was the board above me, and they were just patting me on the back. Anything that I agreed with, whatever they were going to do with whatever, they were like gaslighting the hell out of me and being like, yeah, Brad, amazing decision there, buddy. We're going to go ahead and go forward with whatever that decision was. No, you weren't. You were going to go forward with that anyway, dude. So where's the parallel that I'm making? Well, HCA has a group that basically owns a lot of cardiologists now. There's Cardinal Health, I think, which owns a lot of gastroenterologists, a lot of urologists. And this circles back to like, do you have control? I think that's the big thing to look at is like, if you sit down and you feel like you have control over things, all right, then maybe you do have actual ownership. So, what I would do is if you're sitting there questioning, like, man, maybe I'm a part of that organization, how much control do I have? Ask yourself the question, what happens if I disagree? Are you going to be outvoted? Is there another board that's going to outdecide you? Is the PE sponsor having the final say? Or is it just like, well, you're going to hear someone say, that's not how this model works? Then you don't have control or you don't own that business. Ownership means you can be wrong and still choose. To me, what real ownership actually means is that it's hiring and firing, clinical model, payer strategy, marketing spend, vendor selection. When are you going to exit? If you ever want to sell to private equity or you want to sell to other physicians in your group, when is that going to happen? How is the distribution of profits going to happen? Or how is your CapEx going to go down? Your capital expenditures towards growth. How are you going to allocate those dollars going forward? If you're not making at least some of those decisions or a majority of them, then you're not an owner. You're an employee with variable compensation, meaning that you're going to get those bonuses. And I talked to some of my guys that work for this large GI organization, wonderful, wonderful physicians. But every single one of them is like, dude, the overhead is just absolutely killing me. I can't take any time off. If I don't take time, or if I do take time off, then I'm so far behind on quote unquote paying the overhead that then I may actually owe the practice money just by taking a vacation. So now you're trapped in this working environment where you feel like you have to work all the freaking time. And the problem is that this private equity group is making it seem like there's no money there. There's no money to be had. Yeah, there's no money to be had when they're taking 30% or so off the top for their own profit. Most medical practices are going to run 30 to 40% of actual like net. That's what you're profiting. Well, yeah, if the big daddy organization is taking 30% off the top, you're screwed. It's going to look like there's nothing left at the end of the day. Private equity buys controls, they use leverage, they need predictability. They need docs that are very predictable. And I will tell you that I got absolutely flamed in the past. And honestly, it was reasonable flaming on Reddit when someone was like, "Well, Brad, you consulted for private equity in the past. How much better are you than that?" Yeah, that's fair, man. All right. There was a couple different private equity groups that actually ended up messaging me a few years ago and asked, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this valuation for these types of practices?" It happened 3 different times. It has been a few years since I've consulted with any of them, but that is fair criticism. But the problem is man, it really opened my eyes. There was this one private equity group that was looking into acquire cardiology groups. And I'll never forget what that like guy behind the scenes was telling me. It was like, we really love looking at the guy or gal who has a stay-at-home spouse, multiple kids, they can't stop working. They can't move. Once those young kids are in a school district, you got them. They're not moving. They look for that predictability. And it's to this level that they're looking at these things, trying to control your future, of saying, like, well, they're behind the scenes not going to give you a massive pay raise because they know you can't go anywhere if you've got those kind of roots. I'm not saying this is every private equity out there, but I'm just saying that this discussion absolutely happens behind the scenes. And they are optimizing for an exit with multiple revenues. But the problem is when they get that, they're usually totally done. But the new owner is going to want you as a physician that works for that cardiology, GI group, urology group, whatever it is. They're going to want you to sign a clause saying, "Hey, I'm not going to leave for the next 3 to 5 years," because they want to do the exact same thing. They want to grow it, scale it, sell it to the next PE. And then here you go, another contract. Can't leave for 3 to 5 years. Most of these PE groups are going to fall into one of these categories. There's a minority equity that you're given, often a non controlling, meaning like you can't actually make any decisions. You're going to have equity maybe in a holding company, not the actual practice. So, a holding company that basically just like they have no real estate, they have nothing. It is just a name on paper that is a quote unquote organization. But behind the scenes, there's many other organizations that actually own the surgical center and own all the real estate, own all the equipment. You don't really own anything. You own a shell company. The vesting can be tied to continued employment, like I just talked about. And then there's restrictions on selling independently. If you, for some reason, ever wanted to like sell out your shares and just leave, huge, huge restrictions. I saw one contract that basically said that if you decide to leave, you're going to get a 90% discount on whatever the current valuation is, meaning you're only going to sell for 10% of whatever the valuation is. It's not ownership. It's golden handcuffs because you can't leave with a contract like that. You've got to stay until they sell out and you can liquidate at that point in time. A lot of these physicians are told the same second exit myth. Just stay through the next recap and you'll really, really win big. You're going to get ownership. You're going to get a percent pie of this next buyout. Look at how much they bought us out for. No, no, no. They bought you out for that much money. They're not buying me out for that much money. Until the check clears, I'm not, that's all fake money on paper, okay? Cash is king. The sponsor is controlling the timing. The sponsor, the PE group, controls the terms. The PE group controls when or how to dilute the hell out of you in terms of number of shares available. The PE group controls who gets paid first. You don't control the exit. You're waiting for permission. Owners don't wait. I talk to so many doctors, and a lot of doctors want relief from admin, less stress, a feeling of progress, validation that they made it. PE often, certainly offers in today's world in exchange for control tomorrow. It feels good until it doesn't. I mean, working for PE is not bad. If you work for PE and you love your job, I have friends that work for this HCA company as a hospitalist and as for a cardiologist. They freaking love it. Good for you, man. Ownership and running a business, not for everyone. But if you found my podcast, there's a good chance that you want to take control of your life, your future, just like I did, and you're willing to grind the hell out of it to make these things happen. Both things can be right, meaning your way can be amazing, and working for a PE group, collecting your paycheck, going home, and not worrying about the business of medicine, fine, if that's what you want to do. Working for PE is a job with a little upside, a liquidity event, maybe in the future, but again, golden handcuffs, and it's a risk transfer decision. The problem is a lot of these places are calling it ownership. Hell, I'm here in Central Texas and there's a grocery chain called HEB. Oh my God, I love HEB every single way. However, they recently started up a primary care group, and all over that primary care group is you're going to be a partner. You're going to own this primary care clinic. Are you really going to own the primary care clinic for HEB? Same thing says for Kelsey Siebold, which is, by the way, in Houston, huge organization now owned by Optum, United Healthcare. They're owned by United Healthcare. They say physician run, physician led, physician owned. No, you're not. Dude, okay, Kelsey Siebold, a shell company, is physician owned, but they are completely owned by another organization, United Healthcare. Again, they're playing with the wording here. You don't truly have ownership if you can't make those big decisions. If someone else can overrule you, replace you, or decide when you cash out, you don't own the business. You just work there with better bonuses. So, why am I talking about this today? It's not because I'm hating on PE. PE can maybe, if you start and sell and scale the hell out of it, PE is going to pay you an insane amount of money. And at this point, I'm getting offers from some PE groups to sell out for a large amount of sums. Am I going to do it? Hell no. But at the same time, like if you're at your phase in your life, it's your personal finance. You grinded it, you did whatever the hell you want to do. You can run your business again, back to control. You can run it however you want to. You want to sell it to the doctors that work for you? Great. You want to sell it for a large liquid event, PE? Great. You want to go public on the stock market eventually? Great. Do whatever the hell you want to do. It is your business. You have control over your future. You don't need permission from anyone. You own it. And that's what it's all about. That's what I'm advocating for. So if you're in a scenario where you're thinking about buying into an ownership or you're taking over a practice or you're joining a practice that like sells this partnership trap, think to yourself, am I really making all those decisions as above? What happens if I decide to say no? What happens if I disagree? Are you going to be outvoted? Is the board going to decide something different? Is there a shadow board beyond you that's going to decide something different? Does the PE owner truly have the final say? I have to provide an amazing service to my customers, to my patients. I have to treat my employees very well, but otherwise, I am in complete control of my future. If I want to start 5 more practices, I can do it. If I want to stop here and just collect all the money and not work anymore and just let other people run it, I could do that. And I feel like this has helped me alleviate a lot of the burnout that I've had in the past whenever I felt like I had no control. I felt like I had no control of my schedule. I had no control over being a hospitalist and when I was going to be in there, when I was going to leave, having to work like certain holidays that maybe I didn't want to work. It's funny, the more I took control of my life, the happier I was practicing medicine, the happier I was not being burnt out and things. If you find yourself working for PE and you're like, Brad, I absolutely love my job working for this GI group. Cool, man. That's good for you. But let's not lie to each other. You don't own that PE group. Just remember, ownership isn't equity, it's control. Walking around saying that you own something is like me buying 10 shares of Apple Computers saying, hey, I'm a co owner of Apple. No, I'm not. I don't make any decisions in that. I have a bullshit amount of equity and I have a tiny, tiny fraction of that company, but I'm not in control. Think about it. Take control of your life, take control of your future. I love everything private practice. If you want me to consult with you, I'll leave a link below. See y'all in the next one.